Nick Fasoli, I've said it before, been saying it for years. I will say it again before this podcast is done. I guarantee you, if the New York Jets didn't exist, I would have had to invent them. Like whatever moments of doubt and pain you have in your life, when you lose a week one where you outplay a division opponent because of some bad penalties and some bad turnovers, the Jets are just always there for you. They're like a dog that you love, that will just always love you back and give you that comfort when you most need it. What a disaster that franchise continues to be. God bless them.
Yep, the goddamn Jets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, KFC went on some fantastic Twitter rants, and I feel his pain. But again, I used to be that.
Yep.
That's my excuse. That's why I get off on that Schadenfreude. Actually, there's an even better German word. I don't know why the Germans have so many words for negative things and cruelty, because it's not like that's how they've operated for a century or so. As Norm Macdonald said, when Germany declares war, they declare it on the world.
Yeah.
Who do you think you are, Mars? But to have them trot out this new franchise quarterback, the latest in a series of franchise quarterbacks, and have him just completely implode instead of developing this guy, instead of saying, do we really need him out there now? Are we really so desperate for wins right now that we're going to jeopardize this guy's development and trot him out there in the first two games when he's clearly not ready? And the answer is a big, fat, resounding yes.
So New York way.
Yep. And it's the Jets. I don't know. It's like ingrained, and it's part of their culture, is to decide what would be the smartest course of action and then do exactly the opposite. And even when they win occasionally, when it looks good for them, back-to-back AFC championship games, thanks to Mark Sanchez.
Yeah.
And then you can just time it. When is Mark Sanchez's career gonna collapse like a card table at a Bills tailgate? And it happens. And so they draft their next Mark Sanchez, and it's Sam Darnold, who never got it going and was seeing ghosts by his own admission. And now he goes to Carolina and he looks like an NFL quarterback. He looks like he would have justified that draft position. And here's Zach Wilson, who they kicked all the tires and they ran all the tests on him or whatever. And we're convinced that there's nothing stopping him from being a quarterback. And now he goes out and throws 4 horrendous picks, puts up some garbage time stats to kind of look good, makes a couple of throws, and Belichick fell all over himself in his post game saying, he's looked good. You see that 7 route he threw right in front of our bench, but he knows.
Yeah.
Belichick knows that he owns all the real estate in this guy's head, and he hasn't even met him yet. So it was a glorious thing to witness, even though the Pats didn't play their best ball.
Yeah, I think what New York needs now, I think they need a seance, because I think that stadium is haunted.
Yeah, you know what was the graphic they put up that the Jets are Giants? Neither of them. I think they've won 1 game in the month of September between them in that stadium. So there you go. Great. Just dig yourself a hole that you're not going to get out of. Draft high again, and then draft another guy that you're going to fail to develop. And I heard from someone who was at the game, and this is my favorite tidbit, and I'll share this with you before we get into the show and tell everyone who our guest is going to be. Was that guy at the game said virtually all of the jerseys that you see people wearing in the stands are all throwback players.
Yeah.
So it's lousy with like Darrelle Revis and like Curtis Martin and like.
No one wastes their money anymore.
Exactly. And this is a team that has a top 10 pick virtually every year and can't hit on one enough to have anybody say, I'm not, investing $99.99 on a friggin', just to watch this guy turn into a stiff again. Sorry, I've got a Sam Darnold one.
Yeah.
But again, I love them for it. This is 11 straight now for the Pats over the Jets. Doesn't feel that way. I always felt like they got some of their best games, but it just makes you realize how long ago the Rex Ryan era was.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. Oh my God.
So happy to have this guy, one of the foremost voices in New England sports, period, but particularly about the Patriots. My old radio partner on WEEI, and more importantly, a great person to talk to about the Patriots. Secondarily, a guy I consider a good friend. He's a terrific guest. I was happy to have him. And let's roll it. This is Do Your Pod with Michael Holley. You know, when you have a resume that includes being like the most prolific Patriots book author, when you've written in no particular order, Patriot Reign, War Room, Brady and Belichick, when you're on TV more than Gordon Ramsay, when you are an icon in Boston, when you have in New England, when you have your own podcast, it's rare that you get to say the greatest thing that you ever did in your professional life was mentor Jerry Thornton on the radio. Fair to say, Michael Holley?
That's it. I put it, I kind of hesitate to put it on a resume, Jerry, because people always think I'm lying. Oh, no, you don't know Jerry Thornton. You didn't mentor him. So I gotta use that card sporadically. I don't just pull that out for anybody. When I'm really trying to impress somebody, that's when I tell them about the Jerry Thornton experience. Man, it's so good to see you.
The two things the thing I miss least about EEI, the thing I miss most, besides yourself, is one, baseball conversations that for whatever reason always began with the caller telling you how old he is and naming a player that he used to see. Nick, it's insane. You have no idea how many we get like this. Fellas, I'm 78 years old. And I used to go to the ballpark and I could see Mickey Mantle play. Like, what? Why do you think that's relevant? Who was interested besides you? And nobody does it with any other sport. You never got a hockey ball. Yeah, I'm 67. I used to see Tony Esposito, God rest his soul.
At least you think they don't know what they're talking about. Look, they're trying to tell you they went to Fenway, they either snuck in. A lot of people snuck in Fenway. I've heard a lot of those stories. Either snuck in, bought, had great seats for 50 cents and did all that kind of stuff. So they kind of give you like the backdrop before they give you the breakdown.
Red Sox tickets are soon going to be 50 cents again.
not a bad call at all. They'll be leaving them on people's windshields like they used to do in the early days of the Patriots. Another thing I miss was Weymouth, my ancestral homeland, Weymouth, Massachusetts, unwittingly became a character on the show. And I had a reunion last weekend and we were talking about this. And I remember the story. We were talking about cannabis use in sports. And we got a call. Jonathan from Weymouth, go ahead. Yeah, hi, Jerry. I grew up around the block from you. You graduated with my brother, Michael. Yeah, he goes, and fellas, I could roll a joint when I was 4 years old. We said, he really could. And you're going, no more Weymouth. No more Weymouth calls. But the other thing was talking to Belichick every week. Still one of the wildest experiences I've ever had, to the point where I'm not convinced that it actually happened. I think
as a matter of fact, hey, I remember your first conversation with Belichick. You were like, hey, he said, hey, Jerry, good to see you. You were like, it's good to be here with you.
Minor correction. We were already into the segment. He says, Dale, good to see you. Michael, good to see you. And Jerry, it's an honor to finally meet you. Hand to God. It's
an honor. That's right. Man.
You know what? Again, because he and I have that worldview that can only come from coaching at a really high level.
At a high level.
Him about to break the all-time wins record, me as the low-level assistant on the defense of a JV team of 11-year-olds. So we still kind of just get each other's vibe. We understand how it all works in a way that you civilians just never.
Now, can you tell people, see, this is a great segue. So you're a real professional. I see where you're going there. So you're Bill Belichick, and now we're going into the Patriots. So look, now I'm going to do like the anatomy of a Jerry Thornton conversation. can you explain to people what it's like week to week to kind of feel the vibe of Belichick? Because sometimes he's so generous, he's so talkative. I mean, you can't really stop him. I mean, he just wants to just keep going. And then other times you think he's gonna open up on something and he will stonewall you. Can you even explain the dynamic of Bill Belichick week to week for your Wayne opponents?
I could try, but you guys tried to coach me up, and it was this. I'm not kidding you, Nick. It was, all right, don't try to be, come across as too smart. He'll shut you right down. Don't try to have too much fun. He'll shut you right down.
Yeah. If you're unprepared, you'll be like, don't act like you're dumb, because wait a minute, why are you so dumb?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Thank you for giving me this like quadruple coverage to try to thread the pass in through. And he was great, but I know there were days when he just was monosyllabic, came off the practice field, wasn't feeling it or whatever. And in times he even joked about it, like, yeah, so I was that. I kind of really didn't give you guys anything. But then sometimes you would touch a nerve and he would just go on and on and on. And it happened this week. One of my favorite moments of all time on Friday. Do you remember the question he was asked?
The long snapper.
The long snapper.
Come on.
9 minutes and 10 seconds.
That's too much.
1,500 plus words about whether it's worth it to keep a special roster spot just for the long snapper. And that's what I want to get into. Let's talk about the long snapper. Joe Cardona, how do you think his spirals a bit? No. 100% of the time this year, I can't imagine a scenario where we're not going to lead with the topic of the quarterbacks. Overall, where are you as far as how you see Mac Jones, and did you think Newton deserved more of a shot? I've actually not discussed this with you.
No. Cam Newton did not deserve more of a shot. Cam Newton won the job last year because no one was up to taking it from him. The job was there to be had. That's how he got in the first place. He didn't have to deal with any competition. Think about it. A guy comes in late to the Patriots. We hear on and on, Jerry, about how complex the offense is. That was out of the window. So what? Complex offense. Cam, you're the starter. We got Brian Hoyer and Jarrett Stidham behind you. They're not ready to challenge you. So the job is yours. And he was pulled from, if I'm not mistaken, 3 games last year because of his performance. And yet no one said who. I wonder who will start this week. We may have thrown out Stidham, but Stidham clearly wasn't better than Newton. But this year, when they drafted Mac Jones on draft day, I said, okay, that's the starting quarterback for the Patriots. And you could see it pretty immediately that at worst, when he started training camp, he was tied with Cam Newton. But I think it was better than that. I think just his understanding of what they were trying to do, his skill set versus Newton's skill set, like Newton is a superior runner to Mac Jones, but that's not what they wanted their quarterback to do. They want their quarterback to manipulate defenses with his mind, have the arm ability to make all the throws that are available to the offense. And clearly Cam Newton couldn't do that. And Mac Jones could. And, Jerry, this is really interesting. When we bring this up, this is really tough. I remember having a conversation with you about 5 or 6 years ago. I remember all our conversations. As a matter of fact, after every show, I used to go home and just log conversations with Jerry. Strengths, weaknesses, strength, opportunities, threats.
Well, a lot of self-scouting, got to get better in all 3 phases of the discussion.
We'd have our SWOT conversations. But I remember one time we were talking about black quarterbacks in the NFL, and you asked me, you said, is that still a thing? We've come far enough where we're not talking about, black quarterbacks in the NFL because we've seen so many. And I say that it shouldn't be a thing. It shouldn't be, because now we've had number 1 overall picks like Cam Newton, black quarterbacks. We've had reaches in the middle of the first round like EJ Manuel to Buffalo. Right. We've had number 32 like Lamar Jackson and Teddy Bridgewater. We've got black backups and 2nd and 3rd round picks and 4th round picks who become stars like Dak Prescott. So we've seen many iterations of the black quarterback in the last 20 years, it shouldn't be an issue. But I got to tell you, man, why do I say this? When I was critical of Cam Newton last year and this year, I heard from some folks, some of them African-Americans, some of them who were not happy with what I was saying about the black quarterback. And I wanted to say, no. Listen, when I was a kid, Doug Williams winning the Super Bowl, first black quarterback winning the Super Bowl, that's great. Now we've seen it all. We're beyond it. And I have the right to criticize a mediocre black quarterback without thinking that the whole enterprise is going to collapse. So Cam Newton gets no special dispensation from me because I'm trying to protect a black quarterback. No, we're far beyond that now.
Now, in these private moments, did people say, well, I really think he's doing a good job? Or did they say, look, I know I get his first 14 starts, he had 5 touchdown passes total, or was it, he doesn't have anyone to throw to, whatever.
And it's interesting, and I get it. I mean, it may seem a little crazy, but I get it. There's some deep wounds when it comes to this topic, because for many years, black quarterbacks were asked to do things that they weren't comfortable doing. I mean, we would never have this now. In 2021, you would never have a quarterback who has been to the Rose Bowl, who has been an incredible starting player on a Pac-12 team. It wasn't a Pac-12 then, but a Pac-12 Rose Bowl quarterback has to go to Canada because nobody wants to let him play in the NFL, and that's Warren Moon. So we wouldn't have a Warren Moon story. The closest we got to it recently was Bill Polian, the Oracle of Delphi, Bill Polian. I love calling him. He just sits there, the all-knowing Bill Polian.
Bill Napoleon.
Wanted to change Lamar Jackson, told Lamar Jackson, hey, you should play wide receiver. And I think those echoes still resonate with some people. So I think that leads to some of the commentary.
When Newton was drafted, the owner was it Jerry Richardson?
Yeah.
That old guy who got exposed as being like a sexual harasser.
What did they call him? What was that? What did he have people call him? Mister?
Oh, God.
He wanted people to call him Mister.
Or like Archduke or something. Did he have a title? I don't know. Was it the Viceroy? I don't know.
And remember he had like jeans days so he could look at like the women's, they could look at their butts.
Absolutely. Like a creep of the highest order who just happens to have billions of dollars.
And not that you want to go off on this tangent, but just one more, Jerry Richardson, because these guys, they need to be exposed. He had that old trick that you heard about, like the 1950s teenager, who will put in the movie, I'm gonna put my arm around you and then maybe Copperfield, nasty. He would do that. He would offer to put the seatbelt on somebody in his car so he could feel him up.
George Costanza's dad would do that and stop short. Stop short. That's my move. Cool. Yes. Yeah. And if you remember when he drafted Newton, he spoke to him personally, and then he talked about it publicly, saying, I told him, you're going to represent our franchise, so no tattoos or no piercings. And this was 2011. You know what I mean? This wasn't 2050. I mean, 1870 or whatever. And I thought, this is insane. And I remember thinking that this can't possibly work out for Newton for that. And also because it was the year of the lockout. And I said, this guy isn't even going to get a playbook until like mid-August. And I've admitted I've never been more wrong about a new prospect coming into league in my life, because he threw for 4,000 yards, had arguably the best season of number one pick ever had as a rookie.
Rushing touchdowns as a rookie or something like that.
Yeah, and crazy amount of total yards.
Yeah.
And got along with this old crackpot and whatever until he was exposed as a monster and went out. So
still supported him even after that. Cam did. He was not critical. And as a matter of fact, in that Cam Newton, Cecil Newton epic podcast, which I think was wildly entertaining, I may even put that up on some movie nights. I mean, that was so great. I wanted more and more of it. But in that podcast, Cecil Newton thanked Jerry Richardson and David Tepper. Like all the owners, Robert Kraft, all the owners who, Cam Newton was connected to, his dad still had some nice words to say about him.
There you go. And I know Cecil tried to kind of bring out that he thought the Patriots had done Cam dirty again, like anybody would when it's their son, and he'd have none of it. Right. I mean, he just
seemed... and I would, and you would too. I mean, I love the way, you talk about, I love the way you talk about your kids, and I know how much love you have for your family. I'm the same way. So I could, as a father, I got it. I understood it. Now, as a sports analyst or whatever the heck we're doing, Jerry, I just don't think there's a case to be made in a passing league. You throw 8 touchdown passes, even if you throw in the 12 rushing touchdowns. So 20 touchdowns in a passing league is not going to, that's not impressive. And especially with his erratic throws and his inconsistent technique. The Patriots they needed to do better, and they did do better with Mac Jones.
And you're sold on Jones thus far? Because I've just full disclosure, I was on Team McCorkle going back to like December when they went on that 3-game losing streak, and I'm watching Alabama on Saturdays, and I'm saying, okay, so this guy is starting to become within their grasp. I became fixated, and so far he's everything that I could have hoped he'd be, especially starting with being the starting quarterback, by the way.
Yeah, I'm on board. I'm on board with Mac Jones, and I kind of push back against Bart Scott, who says that he has his ceiling is not that high. Well, how do we know? How do you know his ceiling is not that high? It's interesting how this thing happens, isn't it? Leading up to the draft, you have draft risers like Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson came all the way from the back of the first round to number 2. And there were even some who said, hey, Zach Wilson or Trevor Lawrence, for the number 1 spot. But he was a draft riser, and we act like, and that's the real thing, but we act like once the draft happens, the rising and the falling ends. No, you can continue to rise after you've been drafted. So Mac Jones at 15, did he stop improving? Did he stop learning? Did he not go to a system where he knows what the expectations are? Went to a system where there are good players there. There's an offensive coordinator who has won Super Bowls. There's a head coach who's the greatest of all time. He's in a good structure. So, of course, he hasn't hit his ceiling. We don't even know what his ceiling is because in a lot of cases, you get into the league and sometimes your skill set, your pro skill set is much more valued in the pros than it is in college. Mm-hmm. And so I think his mind is his number 1 asset. And that'll take you places in the NFL. You're a smart quarterback with, I'd say, so-so physical skills. You can play in this league for 12 or 15 years.
And that's exactly how I saw him coming in. It's like your opinion on him as a prospect is a referendum on whether you think that every new quarterback coming in has to be able to do the things that Patrick Mahomes does, that right. Russell Wilson does, that Josh Allen does. And I think you don't necessarily have to, because the guy with the AARP card in his wallet who won the Super Bowl last year, was never known for being able to roll out of the pocket and throw on the run, but he can move and he can sense pressure and he can slide away from it while looking upfield. And so far I've seen Jones do that. And I love the fact that the offense now looks like
a pro.
It's taking the shape of the offense that it used to be. And I'm going to choose those words carefully because I don't want anyone to say, oh, you're saying it's just as good as it was with Brady. No, but it's empty backfields and it's one back sets and it's shifting James White out into to the slot or whatever, as opposed to last year when it was the 1931 Akron Pros offense, which, I thought they'll find a way to make that successful, but they were pretty good as a ground team, but the passing never grew out of that. It never all of a sudden was like, wow, teams are loaded up against the run. So now lanes are coming open. And that shocked me, that the play action game never materialized. And Newton said it in that interview with his dad, where he said, look, I was never asked before to identify the mic, and I have to know how to check down to this.
It's just, I mean, it's amazing when we hear about this. And this is why, some folks around the country, just look at us and they think we're all obnoxious here in New England. But look, say, hey, Dallas, you did the same thing when you won your 3 out of 4, Pittsburgh 4 out of 6. I'm sure fans of that team, observers of that team, when you witness the highest level of football, you're exposed to some things that other people aren't. And so you kind of get a graduate degree in modern NFL methodology. And the fact is, we are used to it. We're used to Tom Brady saying, hey, 52 is the mic. We're used to him kind of shifting protection to get things just right. And then with the wide receivers, when Chad Ochocinco came here and he said he was always used to a numbers route, the whole sight adjustment thing blew his mind. And a lot of receivers too, Joey Galloway, a lot of those guys really couldn't get it. Now, Randy Moss got it immediately.
Yep.
Wes Welker got it immediately. Take it for what it's worth. Another guy who got it immediately, Aaron Hernandez, Gronk. They understood what the whole concept was. And we, as observers of it, we're just used to it. So when somebody says, I've never dealt with anything like this before, we kind of shrug like, well, really? I mean, this is right. What we've seen for 20 years.
Yeah, no one's going to ever ask, want Gronk to be the choice to play a game of Jeopardy with their life on the line. But, hey, all due respect.
The guy never said, or no one ever even whispered, Gronk doesn't really understand the offense, and that's why he's struggling. He got it from day one. So some people just really pick it up, and others, like Cam Newton, like Joey Galloway, Ocho Cinco, and others, Donald Hayes back in the day, just really had a hard time with the concept.
Yeah. No, I don't think it was. Sorry, Jerry. I don't think it was the wide receiver core this week that struggled. From what I watched, I think it was obviously the offensive line. We're missing the right side, and we're missing our big guy on the right. But I think Mac kind of experienced his first real taste of the NFL defensive linemen, linebackers, everything like that. Because at times he was still throwing beautiful balls, but then at other points he was really backpedaling and airing out his throws. And that's what was causing some incomplete passes or just bad balls that almost got picked off a couple times, which he hadn't thrown an interception yet, unlike every other rookie quarterback.
That's a good point, Nick. I'll tell you another problem for Mac Jones. You want to talk about, now most of the time for us, you go from a college setting to a pro setting, everything's going to be better as you go to the pros. For Mac Jones, over 2 years, wide receivers, Jerry Jeudy,
yep,
Harry Ruggs III, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle,
yep, to
Nelson Aguilar, and Kendrick Bourne. Oh man, you can't go from, you got 4 first round wide receivers in practice to, well, he does some good things. He understands the offense. He's coming along. We got a good rapport. So I think, look, he's done well. He's done well with the resources that he has available. Let's not kid ourselves. They don't have an abundance when it comes to the wide receiver position. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tremendous upgrade from last year, which is damning it with faint praise. I mean, Jacoby Myers went from your best wide receiver last year to, I would argue, still your best wide receiver. I mean, all right, Aguilar averaged 18.7 yards per catch last year. That led the league. He had 3 catches for 21 yards total the other day, which brings me to the next topic. I want to hear from both you guys about, do you think that this is, they've got the training wheels on him more than they should? No. I mean, because it's been 2 games. He has yet to throw a ball into the end zone in his career.
Yeah. I thought so, Nick. I thought they had the training wheels on him. But it occurs to me, what if these guys are not getting open? What if they're not creating the separation necessary? Now I know every now and then, and you gotta see, this is the biggest flaw in all 22 analysis. So the good news is everybody's got all 22 tapes. The bad news is everybody's got all 22 tapes. So you look at it, you'll go back, hey, he was wide open. You saw him running down the seam. Okay, what did you count to when you saw him wide open? Did you count to 2 or did you count to 5? If you count to 5, that's not real. He was not wide open. But if you go 1, 2, 3, and you see a guy flashing open, yes, he missed him. So like saying, I heard somebody say the other day, hey, he had Algalor going down the seam. I guess.
Yeah, that was on the double pass.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Trent Green said it, and they never showed a replay. Like, don't you think I'm a little bit curious about this? Like,
right.
I know you have to show tag team singing about ice cream, and that's great.
Right.
Good for them. I want them to be the richest one-hit wonders of all time. But show us that. And Zolak said he disagreed. He said Aguilar was open for a second, but it was the play took a long time to develop, and he just unloaded the pass. He had a guy open, he didn't scan the field or whatever.
I mean, it's got to be context. So what could Mac Jones see? What could he see at the time? What was realistically available to him? So get back to the point, and Nick, I don't know how you feel about it. I think part of the issue is he doesn't really have a lot of people who can just dominate one-on-one and consistently get open. That's why I think right now his favorite receiver is James White. He loves James White. You know, James White gets open. James White is a recipient of, I think, the best ball that Mac Jones has thrown in his young career. Game 1, where he dropped a little pass down the sideline against Miami.
Yep.
Beautiful ball. Great catch from James White. Other than that, I think he's doing the best with what he has.
I couldn't agree more, Michael. Well, from what I saw, there was actually 2 instances. He threw a strike over the middle, and it was like probably like a 40-yard bomb to Myers, and he missed it, Myers. But it was a beautiful throw, but he threw into double coverage. And then the second one that I really loved was his fade, again, right down the middle, but it was to Hunter Henry, and that was caught for, I think, a 35-yard completion.
Yep.
And
yeah,
those balls
just left completely uncovered, and you could tell that he knew pre-snap what was going to happen, which was great to see. He knew, I'm going right to him.
But the issue that you were just talking about, Michael, when we saw in the second series, the 3-and-out right on like the New England 10, and he got sacked twice coming off the right side. But he had the ball for probably 5 seconds, sitting in the pocket, trying to make something work. But we have no Julian Edelman left, I want to call it, who can get that separation on the outside, through the middle, anything. And that's why he was holding the ball for 5 seconds and got sacked 3 times.
Yeah, I mean, somebody should do, I know Edelman is not afraid of media attention, but somebody should do a whole documentary. Jerry, this is your next project. You do this. Do the evolution of the slot position. And it starts here. It starts in New England. It starts in the Earhart-Perkins offense, the evolution of that slot receiver. And you started with Troy Brown, then you go on to West, and then to Edelman, and then whoever is going to take over the mantle now. But it's just, to watch those guys in the middle of the field is a work of art. Like Edelman it's almost like a boxer. He had great footwork. So he could just go in, he'd do a little S curl on you. He'd go here and go there, and you know what's going to happen, but he's so good, and he's such an alignment with the quarterback, when the quarterback was Brady, that he'd just be open. You couldn't stop it. You know, Troy Brown, same thing. You knew what was coming, but these guys are so smart, so they could use your leverage against you. You think they're going inside, they're going outside, and vice versa. And right now, I think that's really one of the pillars of the offense. It's not necessarily the tight end. It's the slot receiver, then tight end. I think that's 1-2. You got to get that slot receiver position figured out. Once you do that, I think there'll be even some easier days for Mac Jones. And right now, I mean, look at the numbers, the stats, the passing percentage is stellar.
Yep.
But I think he becomes a much more effective quarterback when he gets a great slot receiver.
Absolutely, and I think Myers is in that mold now. And I think it's always interested me how the great guys that came before Myers really hung on to their jobs through special teams. Brown, Welker. I mean, the first time Wes Welker faced the Patriots, he was the Dolphins' place kicker. He had an extra point and a field goal for sure. Right. And he had like 100 catches in his first 3 seasons. And then he came here and he had that many by Thanksgiving every year. And I think, Myers, it's that skill set about, not short area quickness and, being able to accelerate to a maximum speed in 10 yards, even if that top speed isn't like, Tyreek Hill. It's just about the footwork, like you mentioned. And, the tight ends, I think, are going to be huge, but for now, it just seems to me, and I was a little frustrated about this yesterday, is, yes, he went to James White a lot. Good idea. White was the best player on the field for either team, and it's not the first time in his career you can say that. But you just saw the Jets just pinning their ears back and just coming downhill and crushing people because they weren't worried about anything getting behind them. And as soon as I found myself really worrying about that, I took a look at Zach Wilson and I said, keeping the trainer wheels on a guy in his second game might be the worst idea. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is going through the same thing where these guys have been thrown to the wolves and they're clearly not ready.
Yeah, but they are ready. They are ready. They are in bad franchises. And that really, I just more and more, whether it's football or anywhere else in any other business, you go in and you're expected to be the star. You're expected to be the savior. Okay, that's great. You're doing everything you can, but you have no infrastructure. You have, no wisdom over the top. And with the Jets case, it's so easy to make fun of the Jets, isn't it, Jerry? But it's accurate. From ownership, they got bad ownership. Hot take, right? Jets have bad ownership. They have for a while. So they got bad ownership. They've got a general manager who has made some good moves, but still don't know what Joe Douglas is about. That's okay. That's the next level. They've got a rookie head coach in Robert Saleh, who's trying to prove himself in his realm. They've got a first-year offensive coordinator who's trying to prove himself in his realm, and then you got a rookie quarterback. And you're not surrounded with a lot of talent. So I think Zach Wilson is a big-time talent, just in a bad situation. And as far as Trevor Lawrence, he's in Jacksonville with Urban Meyer. Enough said.
Did you guys see the tweet? Rich, it's Cimini, right? Covers the Jets. Is it ESPN, I think? Yeah.
Oh, no, ESPN now. Yeah.
ESPN, yep. He tweeted out that in 20 years, there have been 4 rookie quarterbacks who had a day like Wilson did, where they threw no touchdowns and 4 picks. The last 3 of them were for the Jets. You got to go back to 2005. I think it was like Alex Smith, but it was just who you think it was. It was Mark Sanchez, and it was Sam Darnold, who, by the way, is now doing a really credible job. I almost said lighting it up in Carolina, but he's winning. He's playing efficient football.
Once again, okay. I don't know what they got new ownership, second-year head coach, and they have actually really good talent around me. McCaffrey is really good. They got a good defense. So you put Sam Darnold in there. They're not saying save our franchise, Sam. They never expected that, but just go out there. Don't be stupid.
Yeah,
and
I think to an extent that's probably what they're telling Mac Jones right now. Like, just the Hippocratic Oath: first, do no harm. Like I know Brady had mentioned this a million years ago, but he said he was taught, like, you're never going to come off the field on 3rd down with the punt team coming on and saying, I just made a mistake that cost us this game. Right. Like, trust your defense to get the ball back. But if you go for some bad balls in, if you hold on to it too long and get strip sacked or whatever. And I think that's Jones's job number 1. I would like to see them slowly just kind of take them out of that little rolly cart that they put babies in to learn how to walk. Like, if it's not this week or the next week, just eventually, because I've seen him hit people right on the hands in preseason games and joint practices, simulating actual
His
football.
accuracy is amazing. He really is. Really, that's his talent. And it sounds simple, but it's just like in baseball. You say a pitcher, he can replicate his delivery. He can do it over and over, and he can hit the spot. He can hit the black. Okay, a starting pitcher in Major League Baseball can do that. Can play for a long time. And for Mac Jones, the ball goes where he expects it to go most of the time. And there are a lot of quarterbacks who just can't do that.
Right. And the guys that, are legendary for being able to throw the ball 60 yards from his knees.
Right.
Marcus Russell can throw it 60 yards from his knees. Not an applicable skill to football. It's never once come in handy, but I always feel like, a guy can get his arm to be stronger as he goes. But if you come into the league without accuracy, I think it's a hard thing. It's an elusive prey. It's not something you're just going to wake up one day and all of a sudden be able to throw dimes like the one you mentioned to James White.
Now, I know, Jerry, I'm looking at my phone right now. I know you've got your Irish Rose, and I see a text here from my beautiful wife who says, "Let's go." So I got to wrap up, man. I got to go. I got to follow the boss says I got to go.
That's what we call a hard out in this business. Only they don't get any harder than your lovely wife needing you. I get it. Like, do what she says, and that way nobody will get hurt.
Always. That's how I made it to. Now I got to catch up to you. 14. I'm at 14, trying to get to 15 years. What number are you at now?
This coming Saturday, 28 years.
Yeah, baby.
If you can believe that. Right? Imagine me pulling the wool over somebody's eyes that long. I keep worrying that the cable will go out and she'll have a conversation with me and just say, "What is this? Is that what's been in your head all these years?"
Yeah, I got the whole con going. Don't tell me, like, this is our secret. I have conned her. Let's just keep this thing going as long as we can. And then when it's up, it's up. I've enjoyed it. I can't ask for anything else. It's been awesome.
Yeah. And you get three kids, so you're not even halfway to Robert Saleh's kids. Did you see that mention on the...
Dude, 7 kids in a hotel?
Under the age of 10.
Come on.
That's the 9th circle of hell. And by the way, leave it to the Jets. You talked about how their ownership's always awful. What's your coach doing in a hotel? Like, you couldn't get him an Airbnb. You couldn't just hook him up with like laundry.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, kids stay at Adam Gase's house. I mean, I know Gase, they kicked him out. They put him in Gase's crib. Or you don't have corporate housing or something. But this is what we know. The most productive Jet ever is Robert Saleh. I mean, 7 kids under 10. That's phenomenal.
Wait, did they have Antonio Cromartie? They did. Yeah. That's the man who defeated a vasectomy. He's a medical miracle. I love the Jets. I say it all the time. I used to say it to you almost daily. If they didn't exist, I would have had to invent them,
That's
just
right.
Fantastic. Michael, this has been great. Thanks for joining us. Continue.
Hey, anytime for you.
Can you plug your various projects and what you got going on?
Let me see if I have one. I'll shock you. Oh, how about this? This is like totally wild. The last book I wrote, you wouldn't believe this. The last book I wrote.
Yeah.
A book on a Steeler?
Yeah. That was a nice gig. I hope I hope he was wearing the kind of shields like they have in COVID now, because Bill Cowher's a spitter.
Yeah, he is. But he really is a wonderful guy. I had a great time. And he said, look, I want to write a football book, but I do want it to be more of a memoir about some of the things I've experienced and some of the things I learned from coaching and just in life. And so we had a really great time talking. And so that was out. I'm always working on a couple other books. I can't tell you about that right now, but one of them, I've never done a book like this. The one I'm working on right now, never done anything like it. And all I can tell you is that it involves half of the NFL. Ooh, there you go.
One of the conferences. Okay, now I'm fascinated. It's defense. The possibilities are endless.
No, I know.
Okay.
So that's not much of a tease, but It's a little bit of a tease. You're like, okay, what's he talking about? No, it involves, it's a multi-layered project that I'm very excited about. and I think it will be out, if the author does his job, it will be out in the spring of 22. Yeah, that's a big if, right, Nick? I see you saying, yeah, if the author does his job. But you know, you know what the writing process is like. I see behind you all your work, all your phenomenal stuff. So,
forward written by Michael Holley. There you go. That was my introduction to literature.
I'm still flattered that you asked me to do it. And I remember one of the things I put in there and said, look, this guy, listen to Jerry Thornton, the guy vacations out in the middle of some lake in Vermont looking at old football books. And
yeah, that's exactly what I did.
Was it Lake Champlain?
Lake Champlain, right? A place that people think it should be one of the Great Lakes, but the locals will tell you no, because it's clean and surrounded by natural beauty. As a Ohio guy, I'm sure that you appreciate the snobbery.
Leave off. Stop picking on Lake Erie, and right down the road, the Cuyahoga River that was once on fire. Stop talking about that. You know, now you're just trolling.
Glad.
Hey, Jerry, man. Hey, anytime you want to talk, man, I'll do anything for you. Love you, brother. Really enjoy our time together.
Same here, Michael. Thanks for joining us. You're a great guy. Thanks for all your support, but mostly for the company. And let's do this again real soon.
Let's do it. All right, Nick. See you later, man.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, he was Michael Holley. That was us talking about the Pats. Nick, we got into it a bit. We kind of got lost in the weeds a little bit of the quarterback play and Cam Newton, but you know what? This guy's an insider. He's had full access to the Patriots organization, to the war room. He knows where all the bodies are buried. So it's great to get his insight on that. And it's wish we could have gotten into a little bit more about the Saints with him, but when your wife calls,
that's right.
Your wife calls, but
right.
And you know, points well taken about Jones and how lucky he is to have ended up in the Patriots organization, where they understand how to bring a guy along and help develop him, as opposed to the friggin' Jets that just threw Zach Wilson to the Wolves.
Yep. They threw him, I wouldn't say wolves. They might have let him into the ghosts. But there's one thing I was trying to tell Michael, but I'm going to bring it up now. There's a crazy stat that was thrown around on Sunday. And we didn't talk about this rookie QB because he probably won't play for another 6 years if we're being told the correct news. But I think Kyle Trask is in one of the best situations besides Mac Jones, obviously in Tampa Bay. And he's behind the greatest quarterback of all time. But my point is, Tom Brady on Sunday was 14 touchdown passes away from throwing more touchdowns in his 40s than he did in his 20s.
See, this is insane. You know, and that no quarterback has been a full-time starter at this age, right? I mean, we all heard, you know, Warren Moon, was up a little bit. Vinny Testaverde, I think, had a handful of starts. So he's ready to throw more in 4 years in his 40s than in the, I want to say 8 years in his 20s, right? Because he
22.
It's insane. And he's probably going to win the MVP. I mean, yes, it's early, but does anyone think he's all of a sudden going to, pull a hammy and miss 6 weeks? Or
it's not the TB12 method, actually.
Exactly. It's not allowed. He will drink all the kale shakes he needs and the dehydrated algae or whatever crap that he's eating, and he's just going to live forever. And watching him play now, I think I'm through the part where it's agony for me. It still bothers me that he's gone. It still bothers me to see him connecting with, Antonio Brown and having the kind of, giving Gronk this career renaissance that I wish was happening here. But you just have to kind of give yourself over to it. Just emotionally, just sit there and let it wash over you and say, what we're watching right now is impossible.
Yeah. I don't think Mahomes is ever going to break anything. He may win 3-4 Super Bowls. He will never surpass Brady in any form. Aaron Rodgers is coming to the end of his tail. Drew Brees, Brady's about to pass him, I think, for most passing yards. If Brady threw for 250 plus through the first, I want to say 4 or 5 weeks, I think he was passing Drew Brees.
Shall we discuss the GOAT in the room then? He's going to break the all-time passing record at Gillette.
Yeah, if he does it, I mean, it's going to be a monumental tear fest, I think. It's going to be an emotional train wreck in New England on both sides. I mean, the game's going to be stopped. There's going to be a celebration. I mean, I think there should be. I have no hard feelings. Obviously, he was my quarterback for my entire life, and it sucks. But do I root for Tom Brady in the bottom of my heart when he's not playing the Patriots? Yes. I root for all the ex-Patriots whenever they're not in New England or playing in New England. But especially when he comes back for this tour, and you never know, this could be his last year. He claims that he's going to play until he's 50, but who really knows? Anything could happen. And if this is the last time we ever get to see him in New England again, it's going to be one for the eyes.
Yeah, and he's right, and he's not going to let up.
No,
I mean, he threw 5 against Atlanta in the same situation. If he gets the 5, he's going for 8. There'll be no taking a knee. And this is kind of what I was getting at a little bit with Michael about Mac Jones and them keeping the training wheels on him. Is continuously you had the Jets turning it over, and everyone says 4 interceptions, and that's true. But there was also 2 turnovers on downs, and every time I said, okay, this is where I'm used to. Here comes the dagger, right? This is where you stick it in and you twist it. Because Brady was doing the same thing later that afternoon against Atlanta. When they'd screw up, when they'd make a mistake, when they'd give him an opening, you said 3 plays, he'll be in the end zone. And he just was taking his shots. And the Pats didn't do that. And then late in the game, they just straight up went to, this Sean Hannity level conservative offense, like no attempt at all to get into 3rd and shorts or whatever. And I guess I'm frustrated because I believe that he's capable of doing more.
I agree.
Do I want him slinging it all over the place like Zach Wilson making like terrible throws to guys that have no chance? Some of those throws you just said, what the McCourty one?
Yeah,
it was preposterous. He just sat there and said, like, if this was camp, that guy's getting cut tomorrow for throwing that. He threw it in an actual game, and I don't know what he was looking at. The one that J.C. Jackson batted around it, so it looked like it looked like they were aviators and a Kenny Loggins song away from doing the beach volleyball scene in Top Gun. That one he was double covered, and so do I want Jones doing that? Oh, hell to the no! But I think he can do better than having less than 6 air yards per catch on average. There's like 5 guys in the league with fewer air yards per catch, which is great when it's a screen pass and they turn it upfield. But I just don't think they're going to beat a top team doing that.
Exactly, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think it's just you look at it was kind of what Michael was talking about. Mac Jones, where he comes from, Alabama, 2 years, and he had all those wide receivers. And honestly, I'm not going to say this unboldly. His offensive line may have been better at Alabama. And we have some great talent. Don't get me wrong. Love Andrews. He's been the cornerstone of this offensive line my entire life too. Like he's been in New England just as long. But we've had to rebuild, restructure. And honestly, the team that he came from may have taken a step down in the offensive line standard. But in other ways, he is just smarter in that essence. And I mean, like Zach Wilson coming from BYU, he was always the running gun kid. And if you look at it, that the second J.C. Jackson interception, they were like analyzing it. And I was watching the video today, actually, and he had a check down right to the flat, which would have got him maybe 3, 4, 5 yards, but he tried to sling it. And that's what got JC that interception on the sidelines right to the right hash. And he was putting way too much air under every single ball he threw, and he was just trying to play hero ball. Mac Jones doesn't play hero ball. That's why they're calling it the conservative offense. I really think Mac's doing that on purpose. He's throwing the 5-10 yard ins or the slants to Hunter Henry, to Jonnu Smith, like you saw on the trick play, how you said it didn't even look like he looked down the field. He was doing the conservative play because he is one of the better rookie quarterbacks. And I think that's right directly from Alabama.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a decent point about the offensive line, which I want to get into, because like so far, I'm really disappointed because it was supposed to be a strength of the team. And you can just see how much it's cost them to have Trent Brown out.
Yes.
I mean, he's been in 7 plays this season. And I thought, okay, Yodny Kajust, he had a terrific training camp. He's been around the system a couple of years. He's finally getting a shot, and all right, bring him out. So they go with Justin Herron. He was a disaster. So they go to Yazir Durant that they just traded for. Even worse, they're not picking up stunts and twists. There was one time where Jones got sacked. It was a guy on a wide 9 and just blew right around Durant without, Durant was social distancing throughout the entire play, and you don't want that from your tackle. And then he had back-to-back sacks like later in the game, and even one of them, the third down one, Jones held it, I guess. Okay, fine. They're not all on him, but I just wasn't expecting a porous offensive line.
Yeah, we had no strengths to our left or right side. I think on the left side, the tackle played much better, but the right side, it was like a barn door all day.
Yeah, but Isaiah Wynn, and he's getting flagged a lot. Like,
a lot of holds.
And I know it's one of those positions. The oldest cliche in sports is, the left tackle, you only hear about him when he makes a mistake. I get it. Nate Solder had his critics. Matt Light had his critics, even though
I love Nate Solder.
He was great. I'll tell you, the Pats let him go at exactly the right moment, though. I mean,
he crashed on the Giants.
Made a ton of money. I guessed it on a radio show out of New York, and off the air, the guy just said to me, "Hey, what the hell is with Nate Solder?" I'm like, everyone loves the guy. He's a great dude. I just think the Pats got his best football, and they replaced him with Wynn, who gets hurt as a rookie. So they pull in Trent Brown, who was phenomenal, like one of the best seasons by a guy at that position the Pats have ever seen. And I was thrilled when they got him back. I said, okay, that's how you replace, the guard that they franchised, the one who left.
Tooney.
Yeah, Joe Tooney. By sliding Onwenu, who was a revelation last year as a 6th rounder out of Michigan. Slide him over there. It's his natural position. You got Brown, boom, problem solved. You just dealt yourself a full house.
Yeah.
And it just so far hasn't worked. They weren't really getting much of a push. Similar on the front 7.
Mm-hmm.
They got gashed a lot in the running game, and I'm surprised by that.
They did, but I think it was more. I don't think it was the front 4, especially. I think they played fantastic. I mean, you look at Lawrence Guy. He was commanding that Jets pocket the entire game.
I wrote this morning that he's he was the best player on the defense, and that includes J.C. Jackson, who had 2 picks. He made that stop on the goal line, where and he was 2-gapping, and he just got his head over one side of the guard and just shot the gap and while 2-gapping. I know that sounds weird, but if the play come the other way, he was going to be able to get around it and drop them for a loss right in the backfield. So he was good. But Christian Barmore got a lot of pressures. Still high on him, but they gave up a lot of just gap runs.
Well, what I think is where we struggled at was every time we kind of switch up the linebackers, like every time we make subs in there, and especially when Bentley comes in and Hightower goes out, that's when we were getting busted right up the middle. We were just like irrelevant. And after the first 4, it was just like Mario, basically. They were just on to the next level. And there was no middle presence unless Hightower, unless Kyle Van Noy obviously was out this week. But I felt like we had 0 stronghold after the initial 4. And then it really took, like you saw, like Jalen Mills, he was coming down, and after he came down on one of the runs, and he, thank God, was there on the left side because it was a touchdown run for their running back from.
Yeah, was it Ty Johnson maybe?
Not Ty Johnson. It was the ex running back from. They just got him this year. I'm just mind blanking hard.
Yeah, same here. It's the Jets. You know what I mean? How many calories do we need to burn memorizing guys on the Jets who like be cut or released real soon? I think Hightower, we talked about it last week, just looks a bit slow. Yep. And speed has never been his number one calling card, but he's always, the game comes fast to him.
He was always agile, maybe not speed, but he was agile laterally.
Yeah, and strong, and you could put him up on the line of scrimmage, and he'd penetrate. They kind of stopped playing him off the ball the other day, and they had him at the right defensive end a lot in a straight up traditional 3-4, and he didn't really disrupt, didn't get in the backfield much. Judon did. I mean, Judon was there all day long, and I 4 sacks, and it took a long time for them to get even multiple sacks. But I chalk that up to, with a guy like Wilson, it's the same rules that they applied to like Russell Wilson. Like, whatever you do, don't get behind the quarterback. Yeah. Like, contain, stay up at that level, and just keep him in the pocket and force him. Pressures are fine, but don't go chasing him around. And they did that a lot. Barmore was in there quite a bit until it became like, no longer a game. And then you got Winovich and Uche, and those guys are in there to do one thing and one thing only.
Mm-hmm. I agree. The craziest thing was Zach Wilson still threw for 250 yards.
Yeah, and that to me was, in a lot of ways, this was like one of those great defenses that they had, like 2019 or the early 2000s. What they would do is, teams would put up a bunch of yards, but it wouldn't amount to anything. They'd stiffen in the red zone. They'd force turnovers. They'd get big plays. But then afterwards, you'd look and you go, damn, that guy had a lot of passing yards. Good for his fantasy numbers, but, they'd end up winning the game going away.
But that's what we're going to need week 4, or we are going to get rolled. We need the secondary. We need the middle linebacker core. We need the front. We need everything. Because that Buccaneers offensive line, I'd say, is predominantly one of the better of the NFL.
Yeah, they might be the best team in the trenches on both sides of the ball combined in the NFL. Yep. I mean, their pass rush is relentless. They're number one against the run.
Yep.
To the point where teams aren't really trying to run the ball against them much. So now it becomes like a snake eating its tail. Their awesomeness, their effectiveness against the run just keeps perpetuating itself.
They're going to force Mac Jones and Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels to throw the ball in that secondary. I really hope that we either pick someone up or someone figures it out with Mac, because I do not want to see Mac get torn apart, because they're going to kill the run game right away. I mean, Brady knows better than anyone, James White. They're going to probably shut down James White quicker than anyone. And after that, it's going to be the front 4 for the Buccaneers that are going to dominate the rest of the run game we have. I don't know. I think the run game was great, or much better than last week against the Jets this week. And like you said in the last episode, they probably put a ball in his hands and didn't let him take it out all week, because he did not fumble once this game, Harris.
All right. And let's talk about the play of the game by anybody. And that was that run that he had. You won't see a better run in the NFL this year. I mean, someone's going to break a 90-yarder. I get it. But he broke 7 tackles. Yep. And by the time he got to the goal line, I think he was tempted to go around and find the other 4 guys he didn't break tackles from and make sure that they all got it. Like, you want a piece of me? You want to do this? And then when he got to the goal line and Mac Jones came screaming in and helped shove him across, they were ripping at the ball, and he had it covered up. Like, they were going to have to take his arms off with a chainsaw at the shoulders if they were going to get that ball out. So it cost them a game.
Yep.
Losing that game might cost them the playoffs. You know, that's how it goes in this
That'd
league.
be a seed.
But in the long run, it might end up being a benefit because, you know, you're seeing a guy who's going to never let that happen again. He's not going to be, he won't be one of those guys like N'Keal Harry's done before, extending his arms, trying to get to across the goal line.
And fumbling the ball. Yeah.
Exactly.
I loved when in the post game interviews. I just want to bring it up. I'm sorry if I keep
no, we're all good.
But it was I keep forgetting his name. It was Harris, and he was like, the next time Mac does that, he was like, he's not going to do that again. Push me into the end zone. He was like, we need him.
Yeah, it's like about 2,700 pounds of like muscle and testosterone and fat all like in this pile, and there's Jones. But Jones was like a wild man in that game. First, all right, he threw the block on the reverse to Kendrick Bourne. Good, you know, decent technique there. Didn't make a fool out of himself, and he actually knew, because he was outside the tackle box, that he could go low on him and not get called for a chop block. Like, what quarterback knows that rule? You know, is paying attention to that. But something that didn't get talked about on the broadcast, and I wrote about it in the knee-jerk reactions, and actually heard from someone on Twitter saying, thank you. I thought I was the only one who noticed this because no one talked about it. The opening possession, he hit Bourne with a pass, and the ball came loose, and it didn't count as a fumble because he was called, they stopped his forward progress. Well, someone from the Jets picked it up, started running with it. Jones was the first one in the guy's face trying to rip the ball back. Like, okay, what quarterback does that? He's 8 yards upfield on the sideline, and Jones came streaking out trying to fight for the ball. Like, okay, I like that about him. Yes, okay, you worry maybe he's going to get hurt, but would you rather have that than a guy that's saying, well, no, I don't want to break a nail. I just got my hair cut. I don't want to muss it. No, like, give me a guy who's gonna fight for the ball and help shove Harris across the goal line. I'm guessing that's probably the Nick Saban influence. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's expected to, ball out on every single play. You know, that Belichick scouting thing that he's famous for, where they watch guys on an extra point to see how hard they're blocking. Or are they just deciding that this is a playoff for them? And they look at college tape on guys like that and say, we're not going to draft a guy who's not going full out in every single play and taking them off. And Jones doesn't take one off even after he's handed the ball off. I love that about him.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I mean, you could just tell in facial expressions, even when it wasn't his fault getting sacked and like that 3 and out that I brought up earlier, Mac Jones going to the sidelines like he threw 5 interceptions. You see Zach Wilson go to the sidelines after his 4th interception. It's like he didn't even care. Like, you see him through his helmet, take off his helmet, sit next to the Jets quarterback coach, and he's obviously depressed probably, but he had no reaction almost.
Right.
No reaction.
But positively, you don't want that. I mean, look at how much grief Jay Cutler brought to himself in Chicago by just seeming indifferent. And okay, I know maybe one guy's indifference is another guy's, keeping it cool and calm or whatever. But no, give me that guy who, Jones in the post game after they lost, looking like death warmed over, because he had a great debut, but wasn't, at all satisfied about it. There's a great line from Patton where he says, I wouldn't give a hoot in hell for a man who lost and laughed.
Yeah.
And so far that's this kid, he's not interested in being a quote machine. He'll answer your questions, but he's going to talk in platitudes and turn the attention on to his teammates at all times, say great things about James White, and, do all that respectful stuff. And, but ultimately he's going home after games and he's watching film of the next opponent. And, so far so good. To your point about the receiving core, I guess I don't know. I mean, I guess they can scheme these guys open. Aguilar must have the ability to get open. Kendrick Bourne has made some plays.
Kendrick Bourne used to be a deep threat. On the 49ers, he used to get hit from Garoppolo more than plenty deep.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where that Kendrick Bourne went.
You know what? And that's why I think right now they're just not looking that way. They're not going to these high to low reads, and and maybe this is just kind of temporary.
Yeah.
Like, okay, let's get your feet wet. Let's build up to this. It's certainly not because he doesn't know the playbook. It's not because he's incapable of throwing deep. We've seen that he can do that. I think they're just saying, okay, well, at least in these early games, we don't need you to carry us.
Yeah.
We'll win with the running game and with defense, but it's hard to look at that and say that's a formula for beating who? The Jets, yeah, for sure. But what happens when you're up against Tampa, even New Orleans, and what?
Yeah, we haven't even got to that.
Now that we're on to that, what is this team? Like, nobody has gone hotter and colder from week 1 to week 2 than New Orleans did. For crying out loud, Alvin Kamara had less than 1 yard a carry. His average on the day was 0.06 yards per carry. What fresh hell is that? And then Winston goes from 5 touchdowns on, like, I don't even remember how many attempts he had, like 23 or something crazy like that, to a bunch of picks and not getting any yards, and like a passer rating in the 30s. Like, I have not seen the game yet, but do you have the first clue what the hell happened to them from week 1 to week 2?
Honestly, I mean, Jameis came in and he was fantastic week 1. I mean, looked like he was a brand new quarterback, fresh out of college, fresh out of everything. He looked like an NFL ready quarterback, and he's been struggling for the past couple of years. I mean, he finally got his eyes fixed, but now it looks like his eyes got damaged again last week. So
yeah. I mean, he was essentially benched for a couple of years out of his career there. I didn't think that the guy that we saw week 1 was closer to Jameis Winston as I know him. I mean, again, this is a guy, his last full year as a starter had 30 picks.
Yeah.
7 of them were returned for 6. So, I didn't all of a sudden think that he discovered how to play football, but stranger things have happened. And if someone's going to resurrect a guy's career, it wouldn't stun me to think that it was Sean Payton.
Yep.
Because I'm a big Sean Payton stan.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's been on the side of the Angels, and fighting against the Ginger Satan and everything that he stands for. And I'll never stop appreciating the fact that when the Pats hung a banner of Brady when he was suspended, that it was Nick Saban, not Nick Saban, Jesus, Sean Payton tweeted that shit out. And so I love him for that. He knows what it's like to run afoul of the NFL's like PR machine. And I respect him as a coach too, and what he's able to do. It's just, I don't know how you go from 5 touchdowns to basically being completely out of a game and scoring 1 garbage time TD. So I have no idea what team is going to get off the plane at TF Green on Saturday.
What do you like? I don't even know what to expect defensively from them, because obviously the best part of that Jets team was its defense. I want to say that defense did not play bad. The secondary played extremely well, and that linebacker core is very strong. But can the Saints match that? Like, I don't know. From last week, I think Mac is going to throw all over them, and we're going to run all over them. And I don't know.
Okay,
it depends on who gets out.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you're right, because I just want to see how far this guy can carry us. Now, having said that, would I rather have him grant my wish and chuck the ball all over the place only to have them lose? Well, no. I mean, if they want to take their sweet time with this, I'll adjust. But I just think that's their best chance to win, is to let him find the open guy, whether he's deep or shallow or whatever. And I just don't think you're gonna beat anybody with the in the words of Teddy KGB, chick. I mean, I love James White, and he had a 28-yarder and whatever, but that's not the formula for winning, because once teams understand that you're not going deep on them, you're not going outside the numbers.
It's the same thing that happened last year. Everyone knew.
Close. Yes, exactly. To the point where they basically were, daring the Patriots to throw
the ball. Yeah, they put one safety back there, and Cam Newton still wouldn't throw the ball.
Yeah. So anybody especially stand out to you that we didn't talk about? We mentioned Lawrence Guy. I'm glad we're both on the same page on that.
Just notes here. Oh, we didn't bring this up. Mr. Nick Folk.
Okay, I just had that thought in my head as I just started this. The best analogy I can have to him, because keep in mind, he was like their third or fourth kicker the year that Gostkowski got hurt.
Yep.
Kind of got the job by default, and now just can't miss. And as I say this, I know what that's going to lead to. My heart was in my throat when Kevin Harlan kept saying he hasn't missed in 33 attempts or whatever. But the best analogy I can come up with is 2013 Koji Uehara. Okay. He was the Red Sox fourth choice as closer.
Yep.
And couldn't throw a baseball through a beer glass. And ended up having one of the best seasons as a closer the Red Sox have ever had in team history. So go figure. Kickers are like closers. They're weird. And there's no reason why a guy will suddenly get good and they can lose it overnight. And I, for the life of me, don't understand it. I just know that every time you line up for a 46 plus yarder, you just feel like, all right, well, he's got it. This isn't even a question. And it's been a long time since I felt that way.
I feel like he's just like you right there across the screen, old balls. He just gets better as time goes on.
Oh, there we go. Okay. That's patronizing, and I'll take it. If it helps me with the chicks. Exactly. If the ladies are impressed by the fact that, yes, this silver fox is getting better with age, but no, that's huge. Even though he missed an extra point, and Josh Allen had the worst kickoff I think I've seen in Patriots history. It went out at the 9.
Jeez.
Like if it goes out at all, that's terrible. That's how the Pats were able to beat Carolina in the Super Bowl in 2003, because at a tie game, kicker booted one out of bounds, but that was like at the cone. This thing was at the 9-yard line. Like, what? Just for the love of God, just boot it out of the back of the end zone and give him to him at the 25. Let's not get cute about this. But then he made up for it with like a 58-yard punt that flipped the field. So, their special teams has been like the other two units, just kind of up and down. Like,
I think it's this week that really solidifies everything, because we need to solidify before week 4.
Yeah, for week 4, the goat against goat. It's going to be Goda Damarung, and you know how hard that's going to be for me. So I would love a nice laugher. Believe me, I'd love nothing more than to face the Jets again. But the gods in their infinite wisdom will not allow such a thing. And New Orleans is this total mystery date. Like we don't know who's going to show up. We just know that the biggest box to be checked so far is at quarterback, and we've got a guy who looks like he's an NFL quarterback. And I'll leave with this. Boomer Esiason went on WEEI today, and he said if you were doing a redraft of the 2021 draft, that Mac Jones would be the number 1 pick. Oh, okay. That's over the top even for us. Okay. Really, the cool etiquette is to say, like, 3 years, let's look back at the draft of 2019. And how would you do it? Right. 2 weeks in, and he would be taken number 1 over Trevor Lawrence. I'll concede he's been the best rookie quarterback in football. That is
completion percentage.
Yep. Completion percentage. No one's ever had 2 games to start a career of over 70%. He's I think one off the league in yards among all the quarterbacks. He's got he's got the most completions. He's got the most average yard per completion. So yeah, all good. There's still stuff to be worked on here, but if he was going out and having days like Zach Wilson did,
it
would be panic in the streets. People would be giving their season tickets away.
Yeah, just like the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Sorry, Red Sox, I'm coming at you today.
Yeah, have at it. Even though they just swept Baltimore, but there's still a lot to be mad about with that. And my focus is, unless they make the postseason, my focus is 100% on Foxborough as well. It should be. So
I have two final things.
Yep.
We're on. Thank God we're not the Yankees, and we're on to Sunday in New England.
I love it. Okay, he's Nick Fasoli. Want to thank again Michael Holley for being generous with his time. Hope to get him on again before this thing runs out. But it's been a great time. We'll be back next week to talk about New Orleans. Hopefully the Pats will be 2-1, tied for the lead in the AFC East. And we'll be back to talk to you then with a mystery guest, Slancha.